The light from his office was dim, just barely visible through the frosted glass. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs as I watched the silhouette of Alex Chen, our seemingly invincible CEO, hunched over his desk. His shoulders shook with silent sobs, one hand pressed against his face, as if trying to physically hold back the tears. I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have seen this. The most powerful person in our company, the man whose confidence made everyone stand straighter when he walked into a room, was breaking down alone in his office at 2 a.m. My hand trembled as I raised it to knock. The sound seemed to echo through the empty hallway. Inside, I heard a sharp intake of breath, the hurried shuffling of papers. "Who's there?" His voice cracked slightly, betraying the composure he was desperately trying to regain. I pushed the door open slowly, my mouth dry. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. I just wanted to check if everything was okay." Our eyes met, his red-rimmed and startled, mine wide with uncertainty. In that moment, something shifted between us, something neither of us could have anticipated. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to where it all began. My name is Mia Torres, and until 3 weeks ago, I was just another face in the crowd at Horizon Marketing. The kind of employee people sometimes forgot to include in lunch invitations. The one who would rehearse comments for meetings only to have the moment pass before I found the courage to speak up. I'd been at Horizon for nearly 2 years, quietly producing good work that others often took credit for. My desk was in the corner of the open office floor plan, which suited me fine. I could observe everything without being observed. "Hey, anyone want to take the night shift next week?" Jamie called out during our Friday team meeting. "The Richardson campaign is launching, and someone needs to monitor the analytics and be ready for any emergencies." The room fell silent. Night shifts were notorious at Horizon, lonely, stressful, and career-killing. No one volunteered for them unless they were desperate. "I'll do it," I heard myself say, my voice barely audible. 20 heads turned in my direction, expressions ranging from surprise to relief. "Mia?" Jamie looked genuinely shocked. "Are you sure?" "It's 5 nights, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I nodded, feeling my cheeks flush under the sudden attention. "I could use the overtime pay," I said, which was true enough. But deeper than that, I thought maybe, just maybe, this could be my chance to prove myself without the pressure of everyone watching. "Well, that's settled then," Jamie said, already moving on to the next agenda item. "Thanks for taking one for the team, Mia." As people filed out of the conference room, I overheard snippets of conversation. Perfect for Mia, really. Not like she has much of a social life to interrupt. At least she won't have to talk to anyone. I pretended not to hear, but their words stung because they weren't entirely wrong. My apartment was quiet, my weekends predictable. The most exciting relationship in my life was with my succulent collection, which at least appreciated my careful attention. Monday night arrived, and I found myself alone in the vast office space that usually buzzed with activity. The silence was both eerie and comforting. I made myself a cup of tea and settled in at my desk, ready for a long, uneventful night. Around midnight, I heard voices coming from the executive floor. Curious, I moved closer to the stairwell. "The board won't wait forever, Alex." It was Diane, our CFO. "If the numbers don't improve by the end of the quarter." "I know what's at stake." Alex Chen's voice was tight with tension. "I've put everything into this company." "Everything. Then make the cuts. Start with the creative department. They're bloated and you know it. Those are people, Diane. Not just numbers on a spreadsheet." Their voices faded as they moved away, but their conversation lingered in my mind. I'd always seen Alex Chen as the embodiment of corporate success, confident, charismatic, untouchable. The strain in his voice didn't match that image. The next few nights passed quietly. I developed a routine, taking walks around the empty office to stay awake, checking analytics, preparing reports that would be waiting on desks when the morning shift arrived. I felt oddly at peace in the solitude, finding a confidence in the quiet that eluded me during daylight hours. On Thursday night, around 2 a.m., I noticed a light on in the executive wing. Curious, I walked up the stairs, telling myself I was just doing a security check. As I approached Alex's office, I heard a sound that stopped me in my tracks, a muffled sob. I inched closer, peering through the gap in the door. Alex Chen sat at his desk, tie loosened, head in his hands. A half-empty bottle of whiskey stood beside stacks of reports. His shoulders shook with each suppressed cry. I should have walked away. It would have been the sensible thing to do. Instead, I found myself knocking gently on his door. The sobbing stopped abruptly. "Come in," he called, his voice forcibly steady. I pushed the door open slowly. Alex was hastily wiping his face, straightening papers on his desk. The transformation was almost complete, except for his reddened eyes and the slight tremble in his hands. "Ms. Torres," he said, recognition flickering across his face. "You're on the night shift this week." "Yes, sir." My voice was barely a whisper. "I noticed your light. I thought I should check if everything was okay." His professional mask slipped for just a moment. "Everything's fine. Just working late." He gestured dismissively. "You can go back to your station." I nodded and turned to leave, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. What had I been thinking? This was the CEO, not some friend who needed comforting. "Wait." His voice stopped me at the door. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dismissed you like that." I turned back, unsure what to say. Alex Chen looked smaller somehow, sitting behind his massive desk, the weight of whatever troubled him visible in the slump of his shoulders. "Would you like some coffee?" I offered, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I was about to make some for myself. He looked surprised, then gave a small, genuine smile. "That would be nice, actually." "Thank you." When I returned with 2 mugs, I found him staring out the window at the city lights. He thanked me for the coffee, and we stood in awkward silence for a moment. "You don't have to stay," he said finally. "I'm sure you have work to do." I should have taken the out he offered. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who doesn't matter." His eyebrows rose. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm just the quiet girl from creative. Whatever you say to me won't affect your reputation or the company. Sometimes it's easier to be honest with strangers." He considered this, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down, Ms. Torres." "Mia," I corrected softly, taking the seat. "Mia," he repeated, studying me with new interest. "How long have you been with Horizon?" "Almost 2 years. And I've never had a real conversation with you until now." He shook his head. "That's part of the problem, isn't it? I don't really know the people who work for me." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I simply waited. Sometimes silence draws out words better than questions. Alex ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. "The company's in trouble, Mia. We've lost 3 major clients in the past quarter. The board is pushing for layoffs. The Richardson campaign won't save us?" He looked surprised that I knew about it. "It might buy us some time, but not enough. And every decision I make affects people's livelihoods." He gestured to the reports on his desk. "These aren't just numbers. They're people with families, mortgages, dreams." I thought about my coworkers, Jamie with his new baby, Sasha who was putting her sister through college, Marcus who had just bought his first home. "What about new clients?" I asked. "Or expanding services?" A flicker of interest crossed his face. "You have ideas?" For the first time in my professional life, I didn't hesitate. "Several, actually. I've been watching our competitors, and there's a gap in the market for sustainable branding that we could fill." For the next hour, we talked strategy. I shared observations I'd made but never voiced in meetings, and Alex listened with growing interest. It felt surreal, me, shy Mia Torres, brainstorming with the CEO at 3 a.m. Eventually, our conversation circled back to what had brought him to his office so late, looking so defeated. "It's not just the company," he admitted, voice low. My father passed away last month. Heart attack. We weren't on good terms. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. He built something from nothing. Came to this country with nothing but determination. And his voice caught. I'm watching everything fall apart under my leadership. In that moment, I saw past the title to the person, someone carrying burdens too heavy to bear alone, just like the rest of us. My grandmother used to say that strength isn't about never falling, I said quietly. It's about how you get back up. He looked at me for a long moment. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was. She raised me after my parents died. Taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. I'm not sure the board would agree, he said with a bitter laugh. Maybe not. But pretending everything's fine when it isn't, that's what's breaking you. The words hung between us, bold and true. I couldn't believe I'd said them aloud. To my surprise, Alex didn't get angry. Instead, he nodded slowly. You're right. I've been trying to be invincible and it's exhausting. He looked at me with newfound respect. How is it that the quietest person in the company is the only one brave enough to tell me the truth? Sometimes we quiet ones see more because we're busy listening while everyone else is talking, I said with a small smile. That night marked the beginning of an unexpected alliance. Each night of my shift, Alex would appear around midnight and we'd talk about the company, about life, about possibilities. I found myself looking forward to these conversations, to being truly seen and heard perhaps for the first time in my professional life. On my final night shift, Alex arrived with a folder tucked under his arm. I've been thinking about your sustainable branding idea, he said without preamble. I want you to lead it. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. Lead it? But I'm just a junior designer. You're much more than that, Mia. You have vision, insight, and the rare ability to speak truth even when it's difficult. He placed the folder on my desk. This is a proposal for a new division. I'm presenting it to the board next week, with you as the suggested team leader. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside was a detailed plan, building on the ideas we discussed during our late-night talks. I can't, I whispered, panic rising in my chest. I don't speak up in meetings. I get nervous presenting to more than 3 people at a time. I'm not leadership material. Alex leaned forward, his gaze intent. The Mia Torres I've gotten to know this week is absolutely leadership material. You just haven't had the chance to show it yet. What if I fail? What if you succeed? He countered. What if the quiet girl who took the night shift nobody wanted ends up saving the company? 2 weeks later, I stood in the boardroom, presenting our new sustainable branding initiative to the executive team. My voice shook at first, but as I spoke about the vision, our vision, I found a confidence I never knew I possessed. The board approved the initiative unanimously. In the months that followed, we secured 4 new major clients specifically because of our sustainable approach. The company stabilized, and the threatened layoffs were averted. Alex and I continued our conversations, though they moved from the middle of the night to regular business hours. He became both mentor and friend, teaching me about leadership while I reminded him about the importance of vulnerability and connection. 6 months after that first night when I found him crying alone in his office, Alex instituted a company-wide wellness program, including mental health resources and a more balanced work culture. At the launch event, he did something unprecedented. He spoke openly about his own struggles with isolation and burnout. Someone once told me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage, he said, catching my eye in the crowd. It took a quiet voice speaking truth to help me understand that. Sometimes the people we overlook are exactly the ones we need to listen to most carefully. As I stood among my colleagues, no longer invisible, no longer silent, I thought about how far we'd both come. Alex had found the courage to be human, not just a title. And I had discovered that my quietness wasn't a flaw, but a different kind of strength, the power of thoughtful observation, of empathy, of speaking only when I had something meaningful to say. Sometimes the most profound connections happen in unexpected moments, with people we never imagined would understand us. And sometimes it takes seeing someone else's vulnerability to recognize our own strength. The shy girl who took the night shift nobody wanted didn't just discover the CEO crying alone in his office. She discovered herself, and in doing so, helped someone else find their way back to themselves too. In the quiet hours when most of the world was sleeping, two people from opposite ends of the corporate ladder found something rare and valuable: the courage to be authentically human with each other. And that, it turns out, was exactly what both of us needed most.